You're a science denier.
Science denier? I've just defined it. I'm not denying it. Michael from Vsauce, you're very confused. He's the one who denies science. He says it doesn't prove things.
A three-dimensional spheroid. However, I don't know that, and it has not been proven. Science doesn't prove anything.
Yeah, it does. You just didn't have any. You only had pseudoscience that you believed was science. And your pseudoscience proves nothing. Science, on the other hand, has advanced humanity by establishing cause of natural phenomena. That's its purpose.
You used to come in here back in the day and used to shout out, the body of science proves that we live on the globe. What did you mean by that?
I don't think I've said it proves.
Yeah, you did. You're a lying sack.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to kick you out. You liar.
Well, no, the whole body of science has proved.
Good lad, you believe.
Yeah. I don't think I've said it proves. Well, no, the whole body of science has proved.
Good lad. The whole body of science has proved it. I correctly identified Rumpus as a liar earlier.
Well, that's for sure. If you just play some of Rumpus's rebuttals, you'll definitely be a flat earther because they're so ridiculous. They're not based in reality. And he obfuscates and rambles on and begs the question, committing all kinds of error while trying to prove we're a sphere without a radius that can be proven.
Can be proven. Well, so you can prove anything.
I can prove anything.
No.
Is that what you're saying?
It's provable
Saying you
in
can...
the sense of how much
Wait a minute.
the experimental method. Listen, don't interrupt. It's as provable as we can prove anything with an experimental observation.
Experimental observations? Yeah. There's no such thing as experimental observations.
Observations are part of science, Nathan. I know you deny this because you're an idiot. You don't. You deny the scientific method. I know this.
No, you're just telling me that I'm denying something rather than qualifying what I've just said. There's no scientific observations. That's the first step in the scientific method.
No, there's no fixed step in the...
Rumpus, do you think observational
studies aren't science?
He said Nathan denies the scientific method. That's not true.
Well, if he's just told me that the scientific method has no fixed method, then how can I deny it if it's got no fixed method? He's just talking complete nonsense.
You've no idea what you're talking about.
You've just said it has no fixed method. There is no first step. But I simultaneously deny that which is not defined according to you. That's an impossibility and ludicrous.
Here we go. I'll give you an example.
You haven't addressed your doublespeak. You've just said I deny something that has no definition. There's no fixed first step. How can I deny it then?
Well, you get it wrong. You
get what wrong? It has no fixed first step according to you, you moron.
It does not have a fixed first step.
So how can I deny it? So I've just caught you in a complete circular reasoning nonsense statement that is illogical, because if it isn't defined and doesn't have a first step, how can I deny it?
There is a set of things that it can be, but you...
Yeah, it's very much defined. It's based on observation of natural phenomena, formulation of hypothesis, and systematic experimentation. That's what the scientific method is.
It has those components.
That's what it is. The fact that I can succinctly define it while you're telling us there's no fixed first step just means that you're a liar. I can define it because that's what it is. Now, you don't have to like it.
You've read up Ladybird books. You've been listening to QE.
Oh, Ladybird books. No, mate. Just because it might be taught to kids doesn't mean that that's irrelevant to the process of the method. Yeah? Yeah, they do teach it in Ladybird books. You'd think you'd know it. You'd think you'd know it if it's in Ladybird books. You think you wouldn't be telling people there isn't a fixed first step if it's in Ladybird books. You're saying there isn't a first step, but yet it's in Ladybird books. How can it be in Ladybird books if it's not got a first step defined?
I'll give you an example.
What, of the step that's not defined? You're going to give us an example of one of the millions when I've already defined what the steps are?
I'll give you an example. If you shut up, I'll give an example of how an experimental method is without the first step being in the observation of a natural phenomenon. So here we go.
You just said it's observational based, so you're going to try and prove the very antithesis of your point that you've come here to prove, that observational studies are science. Now you're going to give me one that doesn't involve observation. Well, that's the antithesis of what you've come here to prove. Why would I listen to this endless drone about something that you're not trying to prove? That seems illogical.
Trying to censor me. Yeah, you see, you're scared. I know of this information. Let's try it, though.
What, try explaining how you can give us an example that's not observational when you've come here to demonstrate that observational science is science?
Your audience, I can show you're an idiot and you don't like it. I can understand that.
I mean, all you're doing is constantly ad homing me and saying I'm an idiot when I've defined what science is and you've agreed, but you've then gone on to say I'll give you an example that doesn't involve observation. Well, you're claiming observational science is science and it doesn't need any experimental steps beyond observation. That's simply not true. Observation of natural phenomena. What's happening? Why is that occurring? That's the purpose of science.
Right. The only thing you can do is interrupt me. You do not have an argument. So I'm going
Well, every time you get a chance to speak, all you do is moan about procedure while I point out that science is based on natural phenomena and figuring out the cause of it. That's what it is. Maybe moan about procedure again, I would.
You can't answer me, can you?
So, answer what? The fact that you've pointed out that you're here to prove that observational science is science, it isn't. It's merely the first step. You've said there are no defined steps, yet they're apparently written down in Ladybird books, while you continually ad hom me and moan about procedure, whilst continually talking through me while I rip you a new one.
Into your life, a bit of science. You're a science denier.
Science denier? I've just defined it. I'm not denying it. Michael from Vsauce, you're very confused. He's the one who denies science. He says it doesn't prove things, even though it absolutely does. You know, I gave an example when I ripped that complete moron a new asshole. Vsauce denies science. He says it doesn't prove things, Rumpus. Not me. I define it very accurately for people like you who say it's not defined and doesn't have a fixed first step and then go on to moan because I'm stopping you giving us an example that doesn't involve an observation, even though that's the very thing you've come here to prove. And I can succinctly summarise that with you talking through me constantly. It's amazing how sharp I am.
Listen, Nathan. You would allow people to criticise you, but you're...
Another appeal to process. Yet another appeal to process. So, Rumpus, you don't know what science is. Neither does Vsauce. You're a science denier. You think it doesn't have a fixed first step? It does. You're wrong. You think observations only can be science? You're wrong. You are a science denier. You don't know what science is. You are as thick as Michael from Vsauce. So I can... not ad hom, point out with an explanation of how Rumpus giving an example that doesn't involve observing anything wouldn't be science, because the first step involves observation of phenomena. Now, I can detail that because I'm not a science denier, like Rumpus, who's a moron and a science denier, and Vsauce, who is also a complete moron and a science denier, because he's made it clear to a public audience that science doesn't prove things. Yes, it does. If it didn't prove that lack of vitamin C caused scurvy, lots of people would be dead. That's what the scientific method does. It proves cause. Michael from Vsauce, however, denies that. Not me. You just want to lay that at my door because none of your fundy globe belief is backed by science.
Eventually, you will.
Rumpus, does science prove things, Rumpus? Does science prove things?
No, it doesn't.
Rumpus.
Yes.
Oh, he's gone quiet now.
Things.
He heard.
What? I was leaving space for to talk. Someone was asking me a question. I was letting them finish their question.
He asked if science proves things.
And I said, no, it doesn't.
So why would you bother doing
when you
it?
used to come in here back in the day and used to shout out, the body of science proves that we live on the globe. What did you mean by that?
I don't think I've said it proves.
Yeah, you did. You're a lying sack of shit.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to kick you out. You liar. You liar. What a scumbag. So he's simultaneously, let me just point out for the audience what's just happened. Rumpus has just declared that science doesn't prove things, making him a science denier. He's just denied that science proves things.
Trying to project on us.
Yeah, he's a science denier, ladies and gentlemen. He's just told you, the audience, science doesn't prove things. Really? Yes, it does. It proves your hypothesis. Either the null or the alternative will be proven upon experimentation. That's all it does. But Rumpus, as correctly identified by me, like Michael from Vsauce and most globe-believing pretender clown fundies, are science deniers. Not us. We know what science is. We know what it's proven. Yeah? Scurvy. No scurvy anymore. Vitamin C. Proven. With science. To have caused it. Lack thereof causes scurvy. Proven with science. Unequivocally, it proves things. It's advanced humanity. Yet Rumpus has just declared to you, the audience, that it doesn't prove things. Making him a science denier, just like Michael from Vsauce.
It also makes you a bit of a liar, Rumpus, because I remember an episode where about 30 times Nathan asked you, where did we get the R value from? And you declared that the body of science proves R. So now I'm wondering, now in 2020, I just asked you the science prove things and now it doesn't?
Well, because we exposed the globe.
That's a hell of a switch, Rumpus. What's going on?
I'll tell you what's going on. We've learned what the actual method of science is, and we ask for it. And there's loads of citations to back us that absolutely assert, as is correctly so, that science proves things, otherwise there'd be no point in doing it. My first question to him, oh, it doesn't prove things, why would anybody do it then? Yeah, he's here claiming science. Science, the whole body thereof, proves the globe. Yeah, we've got plenty of accounts of him saying that. Why? Because science does prove things, and they need to hijack that to grease the skids for their globe claims.
Well, we deny pseudoscience, though, because that's what he's talking about.
They need science to make their claims. They don't have any, but you at large, the public, at a base level, understands that science does prove things. That's why he's using it. But when we point out that they don't have an adherence to the scientific method, and they're claiming science, that's defined also. That's pseudoscience. When you claim you've got science and you haven't adhered to the scientific method, look it up. Just type in pseudoscience and look at what the definition is. That's what they're doing. He claims the whole body of science proves the globe. When we say, well, where's your science? Science doesn't prove anything. Textbook. Exactly as described in that clip with Michael from Vsauce. Give us your science, you fundies. You're saying science proves it. We're on a ball, you say. Science proves it. Give it us. Oh, what's that? Science doesn't prove things. Yeah, it does. It's advanced humanity. You're saying you've got it. Give it us. Or admit you haven't got any.
Interesting that he comes in denying, saying you deny science, and then when Chocolate poses a direct question, he denies science, and it's the flat earther who is upholding the true meaning of science.
Exactly. Project your digressions onto your enemy. If you don't have any science and you've spent the last 100 years odd claiming that the globe's proved with science, then you better claim your opponent's a science denier, because they might very well point that out like we're doing. Yeah, all globe heads who say science are liars, because they don't have any. Now, that might seem like a bold declaration. It's a fact. There is absolutely no scientific evidence for a globe. Science still proves things, though, and these fundies have been claiming it, making every claim they've ever made pseudoscience, and their defense is to say it doesn't prove anything. Science does prove stuff. If it didn't, why do it? Why claim you've got it? Well, why? Because they haven't. Because they need you to think they've got some empirical proof of their bullshit claim or on a sphere. We're not.
We see the magic trick.
Yeah, that's why they call us science deniers. Yeah? Because there's a good chance we'll point out where they're using science to lie when they haven't got any. Shout out to James Richard. He said, ask Rumpus if he takes vaccines. I can answer for him. Yes, he does. Without doubt.
So I'm wondering, when Vsauce made his declaration that science does approve things, did he go back and go through all his videos where he's talking about science and how it proves the globe and teaching people how the globe works based off science? Did he go back and put like a caveat, like, hey, science does actually prove things, so this video could be full of shit?
Yeah, but that would be wrong also.
They're double speakers.
Yeah, that would be wrong also. What he should be correcting himself with saying was, where I've claimed science in these videos, I didn't actually have any. Doesn't mean science doesn't prove things, as he's later declared. That's just a get-out. When I said science, it might not prove stuff, even though that's precisely what I was presenting you, and claiming science so it seemed more legit. But now it seems that people have caught on that we don't really have any. So actually, you know what? Science doesn't really prove anything. Wrong. Your pseudoscience bullshit claims of being on a sphere didn't prove anything. Science absolutely is empirical. And Rumpus is a perfect example of what they do. Well, didn't you say science and the whole body thereof proved we're on a sphere? I don't think I used the word prove. Yeah, but you definitely used the word science and you didn't have any.
Even then, why would you not have said the word proof? So what? You don't have any proof? Your body of your body of science. Your
Good
R.
point, Chocolate. Yeah, good point. Why would you use the word proof? Did you say science vaguely suggests and hints at the idea of the reification fallacy that is gravity? No, we didn't get that. Not at all. The assertion was that it's proven beyond doubt, and science backed it. Yeah, well, people are going to be pretty pissed. No wonder he's a faceless troll with no name, right? Why do you think he's called the Rumpus? Why do you think no one's got his name? Because when people finally cotton on how big his lies are, they'd want to rip him to shreds. That's why he's got no name. Yeah? That's why we're sitting here talking about science with our names and faces. Rumpus, on the other hand, is a scumbag lying coward, and he knows it. That's why he's got to hide behind his troll persona. Eventually, people will figure out that it's all been lies. People like Michael from Vsauce better watch their back, because people are going to be pretty pissed when they find out that you've lied through your back teeth about what science is. And I'm going to be here to tell them. You're a lying scumbag telling people science doesn't prove things. You're bloody science deniers. Yeah? And you tell us that we're science deniers? No. But we're going to be shouting it from the hilltops from now on. We're surrounded by liars and frauds who've hijacked an empirical method of proving things to grease the skids for their lies about being on a sphere. And all those people who have got their faces out there and are accessible, people are going to be outraged. They're going to say, why have you said you had science? Why did you lead me to believe this was true? Why have you later on denied that science proves things just because you've lied about having it? They're going to ask questions. And so they should. We've all been deceived. Now, if these people say, oh, well, I didn't realise that when I made up this story I got from Wikipedia that said science in the description, that it actually was making it up. Well, oh, my bad. You've made the claim now. Due diligence, my friend. Publish and be damned, Vsauce. Yeah, there's plenty of recorded stuff where they're claiming science, easily put apart by flat earthers who know what science actually is. Yeah, but we'll be called science deniers while we highlight the actual method that's not being adhered to, and where they're utilising it to declare they've got proof and they haven't, and where they then later throw science under the bus, saying it doesn't prove anything, simply because they've been caught out. Quick shout out to James Richard. You would think that the Rumpus wouldn't take vaccines. Oh, God. Because they're not safe and they're unscientific. Unscientific, that bit I'll give you. The rest, you'll have to prove that off your own back, I'm afraid, James. But yeah, there's plenty of mathematical statistics and case studies that are done. But scientific validity, no, I've seen absolutely none being attributed to vaccines. Feel free to correct me if you feel that there's some scientific validity, cause and effect relationships that have been ascertained through systematic hypothesis-based experimentation based on a phenomena that's been observed. If you can show me that for a vaccine, you'll be the first. There isn't any science for this shit.
Yeah, but they still say that they have a ton of science that proves we're on a globe. I hear it every night.
Yeah, they're lying. They don't know their own nonsense, or they're just not very well informed. Makes no difference to me. As soon as you put it out there and you haven't done your due diligence and you've just claimed it as your own, which you do when you publish it, yeah, you better be hiding behind a faceless troll account like Rumpus, who obviously knows better, knows there's a high risk that when people figure out how big his lies are, they'll want to get hold of him. So better stay nameless and faceless, right, Rumpus? Meaning a disturbance, if you look up the definition of his troll name. A disturbance, right? You don't need to cause a disturbance if you've got truth on your side.
Well, pseudoscience has been lit up by the light of truth, and there's no running away from it. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, Earth is obviously and observably flat. The Earth is not a sphere. The sky is not a vacuum. We're not spinning.
For a little bit of comedy relief. Nathan, if you want, you can go to Ballbusters. I put a video in there by Ute, who's got a collection of Rumpus saying body of science.
Have a go. I will ask for a 64th time. I would like scientific proof of Earth curvature.
The whole body of science says so.
The whole body of science is not the scientific method.
The whole body of science.
Yeah, the whole body of science. Yeah,
There you go.
that's right. The whole body of science says.
You sound like a Christian saying the body of Christ. That's what they would say, Rumpus. Do you realise that? You sound like a fundamentalist. Do you realise that? That's what they would do. The body of science compels you. The body of science compels you. I've got a lot of admiration for people who actually confess to the fact that they've got a belief. Good for you. You've proved it to yourself, have you, Rumpus? Good lad.
Well, no, the whole body of science is proved.
Good lad, you believe.
Yeah. Sure.
So you can't show me a model of Earth? I thought you had one. You've proved it to yourself, have you, Rumpus? Good lad.
Well, no, the whole body of science is proved.
Good lad. The whole body of science has proved it. So when I correctly identified Rumpus as a liar earlier, in every single one of those clips when we asked Rumpus, where'd you get the R value? Now we know it's debunked, it's dead, Black Swan killed it, it's presupposed anyway. But when we asked him, he told us science. So, given that he's told us on this show that science doesn't prove things, so when he was asked where he got R, he lied and said he got science, he hadn't. But what he had wasn't proving it, because it turns out what they were claiming was the whole body of science, or reification, not science. That was pseudoscience, and it wasn't proving anything. They're now admitting it. They're saying science doesn't prove anything. Well, no, they're throwing an empirical method under the bus that has advanced humanity. Yeah, just because they've utilised this method, which does prove things, to claim that we're on a sphere. And we're not.
Well, it gets bad because we saw how Rumpus just disqualified himself from any legitimate conversation on the topic because he lies. But then when I quoted the Association of American Geographers, they say it too. They say we must embrace the fiction in our science. I mean, they're basically saying it's whatever we want it to be.
Yeah. And whatever we tell you it is.
Yeah, because it's got to match the model, which is not reality.
Well, what do you expect when you have Einstein and a thought experiment?
Yeah, what do we expect? Not a lot. They ain't got much to go on, is what I think you're trying to say, Neil. They haven't got a great deal in their arsenal, have they?
No, and they're listening to a guy who had a thought experiment about the bending of space-time, and that's what they get all their ammunition from.
It reminds me of a Mark Sargent analogy. So he was like describing how you come to this subject and you go to the evidence closet and it says globe earth proof on the door. And you open it, and it's massive. It's a huge, enormous warehouse full of boxes, all labelled globe evidence. You go, wow, bloody hell, there's loads of it. So you go, all right, we best start looking through these boxes then, eh? So you pull down the first box off the shelf, and you get your Stanley knife, and you open it. You look inside, and you go, oh, it's quite full. There's packing paper in here. It's full to the top with packing paper. So you pull out the packing paper, and you get to the bottom, and you go, there's nothing in this box. Oh, well, just coincidence. Let's pull the next box down. You pull the next box down, you go, seems about the same weight. Open it up. Loads of packing paper. Looks like it's full. You start pulling through the box. There's nothing in that box. You spend about 5 years, go through the entire warehouse, pull open every box, all of them labelled globe evidence, and there's nothing in any of them.
So then you realize after all that time, the globe is just nothing but packing paper.
Yeah.
Filler.
Yeah.
Paper mache.
Paper mache was another good analogy. That was wakey. So when I interviewed him, he described the globe as being papier mache. So instead of picturing your globe lamp that's on your bedside kid's table or whatever, picture your papier mache globe. And then he described that you go up to it and look at it, the model, and at the time when you're looking at it, you've got that idea of this papier mache globe as being the world you live in. But then you go up to it and touch it, and your finger goes straight through. And then you look and you see someone on the other side of it poking their finger through, and you can see him through it, and you're like, what's going on here? I thought it was a solid thing, and it's just a thin papier-mâché ball that's got nothing supporting it. You can poke straight through it really easily.